This is what Bruce would write a letter on. There's an example of a letter. He would put a number at the top. I think there's number 31 and 32 letter to our mom in one of the baskets of the bicycle. So, in honor of Bruce, the yellow pad. There are photos, memorabilia. We would just love if you have the opportunity to look at it, touch it, remember little bits of Bruce. Most people here know me. I am Bruce's sister. I'm also known as Donna Gail Crabtree Nussel. And my dad was Bruce's legal guardian. When Miss Milo died at Oakview, we'll always call it, the nursing home here in town, and then Mr. Milo, my father promised him that he would help watch after Bruce. And Mr. Joe Smith, attorney at the time, got an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, typed something on it, shook my dad's hand, stamped it, and he was the official legal guardian. Time went on, many an argument at the Crabtree's garage about how things didn't go well. My dad, of course, became ill, was no longer able to do that service. We asked around town for any good Samaritan that would be willing and happy to take that on. And I inherited Bruce. I thought you inherited money. I didn't know you get Bruce. And I say Bruce is my brother. He's kind of like my brother from another mother, as they say in this day and time. And I say he is my brother because he is expected to still be my brother. Lena and I gave him a laundry list of things we need him to do from his higher level to help us out. And we do expect for him to keep living in our hearts and in yours. One time when Darren was still living at home, he asked his dad and I, "What did y'all do before Google?" And my question might be, what did we do before Facebook? Because I'm going to share some things I learned about Bruce from Facebook. A family had had a death, and typically people bring food. Bruce rode up on this bicycle with a dozen eggs and a loaf of bread. It was probably the cheapest white bread you could find, but it was a loaf of bread. That came from his heart. Another person wrote that he didn't meet a stranger. If he did, they weren't strangers long. Others wrote about how he would be at the tennis court as they practiced, and he'd hang around, and when they were finished, he would volunteer to help anyone with their serve if they wanted to. I also read that he had an uncanny ability to just stand near the center net and whoop your rear end at tennis without him moving, and the ball's going everywhere, but he could still win somehow. But I think what I saw in Bruce was that he showed a simple, a genuine, and uncomplicated kind of love. Perhaps that's why we kept being drawn back to him, even when he would get on your last nerve. He got on my last nerve once, maybe twice, a lot. But he always said what was on his mind as well. It might have made Miss Manners cringe a lot, but you always knew where he stood, and there's some simplicity and honesty and love even in that. On Monday, Bruce had been in the hospital, which wasn't unusual. His heart rate would race away with him. He'd go spend a bit of time in what he knew as the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Come back. That was nothing but fun and games for him. New blood to talk to, if you need new stories. But he came back and he just really wasn't right. So through hospice, we started what we call continuous care, which stays at his bedside and make sure things are going okay. I didn't think much of it. None of us were really too concerned. Sunday night, he started changing, and by Monday morning, I got a call from the hospice nurses saying, "We think he's preparing to die." So by the time I got off work and got over, Debbie Phillips was there singing to him, and she had just sung "Jesus Loves Me." So he was somewhat awake. He had been rather comatose. So as I entered, my dear brother, looked up and said, "Hey, how's your love life?" I actually said, "Well, let me pull up a chair and tell you about it." But just as soon as he had brightened up to say that, he was back to being unresponsive. So the last words from him, my brother Bruce, "How is your love life?" And soon after that, someone and I had a discussion about why do we wait till someone's death to tell them the things we appreciate and love and respect about them. And I don't think any of us can say Bruce was guilty of that. So with Bruce showing this love, we might ask ourselves every day, how is our love life? What would Bruce do with everyone, the cashier at Hickox, the dentist, our loved ones, our families, our church families? Many of us learned on this property and other church properties in town, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Letting that light shine, letting our love shine, sharing it. And I'm going to challenge myself to do that. To meet people and let them know how worthy they are, how important they are. Tell them that they matter, the things that I appreciate about them. My brother, Bruce, and your brother, Bruce, I think he'd really like that. And just on behalf of the Crabtree family, thank you all. Thank you all. This is his family. This community is his family. And even though we sometimes didn't want to, we loved Bruce. And thank you for your participation in that. Go Bruce.
Go Bruce.
Yeah.